Hello, I'm a new mom in my 20s. I met my husband when I went on a blind date during my first year in college. It was so-so on our first date because both my husband and I weren't serious. We thought our relationship would end after a single date. However, should I say it was fate? We met again at a club meeting soon after. I was late for the meeting and came in a hurry without wearing any makeup nor hats. And rushing in that I didn't even look around, thus I didn't realize that my husband was there. But my husband saw me. He said he recognized me at once when someone kicked a door and ran, and in that moment he thought, "This is my woman." My bright and lively look was just his style, so he said. Anyway, after that day, my husband and I bumped into each other frequently in the club. At that time, I had a lot of worries because of family matters. My parents did not get along and finally separated, and I was under a lot of stress because after breakup, I was an only child and thus lonely. And my husband was a great comfort to me. When I was with my husband, I could forget all my worries and have fun, albeit temporarily. Throughout college, I met no one other than my husband. Thus it was natural to wait for him when he went into the military service. Although we did not put it into words explicitly, we just assumed that we would get married. It was just expected naturally. During her senior year in summer, my husband told me that his mother wanted to meet me and whether it was okay with me. I said yes, of course. In truth, I have been waiting for this. I thought we were going to get married anyway, so why drag out? When I met his mother, I found her to be a lovely person. She was warm and made me feel very comfortable, as if we knew each other for a long time. Plus, she said she'd like me. I felt all my tension relieved. Soon after, my husband also met with my parents. Because they had heard a lot about him through me, they were able to carry on a friendly conversation and a comfortable atmosphere on the way home. My mom told me that my boyfriend seemed serious and was a very nice person. She said she was sorry. Actually, my parents just got back together not too long ago. They had almost divorced, but they were able to rethink about each other during their separation, and they had concerns about my wedding. While discussing these issues, they talked a lot more than when they lived together, and they started to understand each other. As a result, they decided to reunite. My mother apologized that I must have been hurt, having a very tough time in between them. I told her it was all in the past and not to worry. The parents of both sides met soon after we met each other's. Then the wedding preparations started smoothly. As for me, I was worried as I was marrying right after graduating college. But I had no regrets. Even after the wedding, my mother-in-law was very considerate of us. My father-in-law, who is very authoritarian with a negative personality, was also very supportive. Then one day, when we were to go to my in-laws for a dinner, my husband and I decided to watch a movie in their afternoon first. For a while, my husband was so busy with work, and I was children the kids while being a homemaker, so we didn't have any time to enjoy together. We finally had time watching a movie leisurely. After the movie, I turned on my cell phone, which was turned off in the theater. I noticed many missed calls, including dozens of text messages. Listening to the recorded voice, my husband became pale in the face. His brother had left a voice message to rush to the hospital because their mother had collapsed. We were so shocked and went straight to the hospital. On our way, my husband's face was as white as a sheet, and he didn't say a word. I held my husband's hand tightly, saying it would be all right. What else could I say other than being on his side? If only we hadn't gone to the movies, would she be okay? I kept regretting it. I felt so guilty for spending that time just having fun. When we arrived at the hospital, his mother had finished an emergency treatment and was in the intensive care unit. As soon as my husband's younger brother saw us, he snapped at us for coming late. "Why are you coming now?" I couldn't get in touch of both father and you. Do you know how scared I was? Mom was dying. And what were you doing all this time? And come only now? Ultimately, his brother burst into tears. According to his brother, when he came home after work, he found his mom collapsed on the kitchen floor, grabbing her chest. The doctor said that it was myocardial infarction, which was discovered too late, and advised us to prepare for the worst. I was just bewildered by the sudden disaster. I couldn't believe my mother-in-law may die when she was so well like any other days in the morning. But even during this whole time, my father-in-law was nowhere to be seen. Neither his father nor his brother answered the phone. So we stayed up all nights in front of the intensive care unit. The next morning my father-in-law came, and shortly after my mother-in-law passed away. We had to hold a funeral with no time to mourn our death. Thus we had no chance to ask my father-in-law where he had been all that time. Everyone was not in a proper state of mind throughout the funeral. My husband and I terribly regret in not going home earlier from watching that darn movie. If we had arrived earlier, we could have saved my mother-in-law. I couldn't stop crying because of the guilt. After a cheerful farewell to my mother-in-law, about a week passed, when my father-in-law called us for a visit. We thought he wanted us there to sort out his wife's belongings. However, when we arrived we were dumbfounded. A woman was sitting glued right next to my father-in-law. She acted as if this was her own house. Say hello to her. She will become your mother. I'm introducing her to you earlier than expected. But I hope you will get to know each other and become closer. My husband and his younger brother appeared angry and confused. As a daughter-in-law, I too was bewildered. My mother-in-law had passed away only a week ago, and there's already a new mother-in-law. I couldn't understand my father-in-law at all. Later I learned that while my mother-in-law was alive, he was cheating on her and did not come home often, causing turmoil for my mother-in-law. Then the woman, without any shame, went into the bedroom and took her clothes out of my mother-in-law's wardrobe. My brother-in-law yelled out in anger, "What the hell are you doing? Aren't you even embarrassed in front of my sister-in-law? There is such a thing called etiquette. How could you do this in less than a few days after Mom's funeral? How can you betray us like this?" My brother-in-law raged on and eventually bolted out of the house. We also didn't want to be there anymore. They were such a shameless old couple. My husband spoke angrily to his father that it wasn't right for him to do this, and grabbed me to get out of the house. Then about a month had passed. I learned I got pregnant. I had been waiting for a baby for a while, so I was very happy. I didn't feel like calling, but I felt a duty to let my father-in-law know about this news, and made a call. Upon answering the phone, my father-in-law bluntly asked why I was calling him, and angrily told me to call his wife instead, when he said I was a disrespectful daughter-in-law, calling him directly and was scolding me. I wondered if calling him was that wrong to be berated over. In truth, I had never called my new mother-in-law, nor did I ever wanted to do it. However, it was news that I was pregnant with their grandchild, so I forced myself to make the call. When my new mother-in-law answered the phone, she flatly told me to come to the house, without listening to me. When I asked why, she said she needed to make some kimchi. Mother, actually I'm pregnant at husband 8 weeks. The doctor said that I needed to rest, so I'm staying in bed these days. Hey, who hasn't been pregnant? The doctors at first try to scare you and say such things. If you care that much about it, do as you wish. However, who said that I would put you to work? I was calling you to give you some kimchi. I wonder whether I should tell my husband about this conversation, but decided not to. He already had a strained relationship with his father, so I shouldn't say this and that about the new mother-in-law. The new mother-in-law, who told me to do as a wish, soon sent me a text message. She stated that she's different from the previous mother-in-law, and if an elder calls, it's a duty for a daughter-in-law to come. Whether I liked it or not, she was now my mother-in-law. So reluctantly, I bought some fruits and went to my in-law's house. My new mother-in-law, who told me that she wasn't going to put me to work, gave me an apron as soon as she saw me, as if she was waiting. Since the elder of the household was ordering me, I ended up putting on the apron and went into the kitchen. Then would you believe what happened? I ended up doing all the work to make that kimchi. My new mother-in-law, who has never made it before, ordered me to do this, to put that all with her mouth and doing nothing herself. Then in the end she tasted it and frowned, saying it was not good. I adjusted as she ordered, so it was not my fault. Still, I checked to see if I put something wrong. It's your bad handling, don't you know? It's not my wrong direction. Are you even making proper meal for your husband? Oh my goodness. You need to learn all over again on how's what works, mother. I take care of our household well. My husband also likes my cooking. He does it once in a while. But I do most of it. Why are you talking back so much when I'm offering to teach you? How long has it been since you married? And still you're so lousy like this. Did you act like this to the previous mother-in-law? Did you talk back at every point? Of course not. My mother-in-law did not act like you, I wanted to say to her, but I swallowed the words. Meanwhile, because I was standing continuously, my body felt heavy and sluggish. I wanted to sit down for a while, but because the new mother-in-law was berating me forever, I couldn't do that. And you need to do well, so that your husband and his father can make up. I'm saying that you need to come here often and put a bridge between them. Why don't you know what elders wish for? I said I understood. I also didn't want my husband to have an exchange relationship with his father, however. I felt that she wasn't in the position to say that I had a lot to say. But because my baby Kong Kong was listening, I kept silent. I tried to think positively, just in case the bad thoughts would transfer to my baby. My mother-in-law called me often after that day. The reasons were many. She would ask me to come and take some clothes she bought from my husband, or make some side dishes, or get some fruits she received for present. But when I went there, those were her excuses, just to put me to work for her. The clothes I had to go and order, the side dishes I had to make, and so forth. Sometimes I even had to prepare their dinner, and she would always have a reason of her own. I don't know your husband's taste, so you should prepare the meal. And about the side dishes, saying I don't know your husband's liking, so you have to taste it. To sum up, I had to make all the side dishes, and all of them went on their dinner table, not ours. In fact, this may be something not worth complaining when thinking about it. Making a few side dishes wasn't that difficult. My body could endure some fatigue. After spending my days working at my in-laws, my doctor's appointment came up. My doctor asked me if I had been moving around a lot, and told me to slow down and rest at home, even if I felt stuffy. It wasn't that I didn't want to rest. It was because my mother-in-law kept calling me anyway. Going to their house to work was becoming stressful for me. My new mother-in-law did not seem to have any interest in my pregnancy. Not even once had she ever asked me if I was okay, or what did the doctors say. Nothing was asked ever. Maybe because we were complete strangers. Was it that I miss my deceased mother-in-law a lot? If she had been alive, she would have been so happy anticipating her grandchild. She would have worried a lot about my health. Whenever I thought of her, I became sad. Often time passed, and I reached 13th week of pregnancy, due to stress from my new mother-in-law. My physical condition was not good. Then she called me again, and blatantly asked me to send her money every month. I was speechless. Mother, I think that would be difficult. We don't have enough money to give you spending money every month. We also have to prepare for our newborn baby. Could you believe what she said? I heard that you never wrote and got married as soon as you graduated. For your age, you're very old-fashioned. How could you make your husband the only breadwinner? She criticized me for not working. So I told her that I was adding to the household by tutoring kids. Because of my pregnancy, I was taking time off. But as soon as the baby is born, I told her I would be tutoring again. Then she said that when I start tutoring again, I should send her spending money for sure, even though she was my mother-in-law. How could she demand as if she had a right to the money? Moreover, she wasn't in the position to be asking. Mother, I think I have to discuss this with my husband. It will be an expense for every month. And we have our own living expenses too. Then she chastised me for not having any sense of flexibility. She said that I don't have any intelligence for doing work properly, but also have no ability to earn a living. I was so upset that I did not say anything. My new mother-in-law seemed to have sensed my feelings and just hung up the phone on me, stating that I was pounding at the elder who said things I disliked. I called her back. but she would not answer. So I sent her a text message that I was sorry, and sending her spending money would be discussed with my husband. 1 week must have passed. My body felt heavy, and I couldn't eat anything in the morning. So I was in bed when my new mother-in-law called. She said that her daughter was getting married, and she needed to go shopping for reading gifts. I didn't know she had a daughter, but I congratulated her on the wedding. Then she said that her daughter was busy, so she wanted me to accompany her to go shopping for the wedding gifts. Mother, I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well today. I won't be able to go today. So why not another day? Or you can go when your daughter has a time. Then suddenly she became angry. What, your daughter? Don't you know how to properly address her as sister? What kind of manner is that? I feel very hurt. Is my daughter a stranger to you calling her sister? Is that hard for you? In truth, I didn't even know she had any children. How would I know? My father-in-law just brought her in a sudden, and before then we knew nothing about her on top of that because of them. My husband's young brother left home and cannot be reached. So how could I have any room to think of her own daughter? So I told her that only today I learned that she had a daughter, but I congratulated her on the wedding. Then she said that her daughter was busy, so she wanted me to accompany her to go shopping for the wedding gifts. Mother, I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well today. I won't be able to go today. So why not another day? Or you can go when your daughter has a time. Then suddenly she became angry. What, your daughter? Don't you know how to properly address her as sister? What kind of manner is that? I feel very hurt. Is my daughter a stranger to you calling her sister? Is that hard for you? In truth, I didn't even know she had any children. How would I know? My father-in-law just brought her in a sudden, and before then we knew nothing about her on top of that because of them. My husband's young brother left home and cannot be reached. So how could I have any room to think of her own daughter? So I told her that only today I learned that she had a daughter, so it was quite awkward. She was a member that we didn't even know about. I tried to explain kindly, still my mother-in-law angrily said that I didn't have manners as a daughter-in-law, and that I gave only excuses to get out of the housework. Is your pregnancy so special? You tout as if you have earned a medal. When I got pregnancy, I did all my responsibilities. Are the girls your age weak, or are you being so picky? Then I heard my father-in-law's voice over the phone. He asked her to give the phone to him, and then started to shout at me. I was listening on the side. And you're being so belligerent. How dare you talk back to your mother-in-law like that? I've never heard of or seen a daughter-in-law like you. How our family has become such a low level like this. Come right now, having no choice. I dragged my heavy body to see my mother-in-law and go shopping for a daughter whom I never met. That day, I had to go to a department stores in Upper North and another department store in Gangnam. I didn't know what she wanted to buy, but she dragged me all over. My legs became swollen. Also, I had never shopped for wedding gifts in the department store, so I didn't know the prices, and in my case, I only bought necessary things. However, my new mother-in-law even tried out a man coat. At first, she was to buy it for the groom's mother, but she said she was receiving it too. She got all excited trying on many clothes. I started to get cold sweats on my forehead. I had not eaten anything since morning, and I had walked too much with a heavy body. My legs got terribly swollen too. Later, I became dizzy. Then she said she has to buy her own clothes and rushed me to go to the shop. I don't know how I followed her around. After a while, I had to barely drag my heavy legs. My new mother-in-law made me carry a heavy load of clothes she bought, and she said she was going back to the department store up north and headed toward the parking lots. I remember going to the parking lot and opening the front door, and suddenly my memory stopped there. I had fainted. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. I overheard my husband's angry voice outside the curtain. My mother-in law's voice could be heard in between, but my husband's loud voice drowned hers. Are you out of your mind? Whose wedding gift? Who is she? Did you even introduce her properly to us? The hospital warns us to be careful. And how can you overwork a pregnant person like this? Then my father-in-law's voice could be heard who overworked her. She says she was coming, so we let her. How can you act like an ignoring bastard and shout at your mother? Then my new mother-in-law cheerfully said, "Stop it, it's all my fault. I'm sorry, I didn't know if it was that hard. She shouldn't have come. I thought it was okay since she came. How could you not even feed a pregnant person? And drag her all over the place, and father you too. Don't just side with this woman." Then my father-in-law became enraged that my husband addressed her a woman. I felt sick to hear my new mother-in-law feigning sniffles. I couldn't stand it any longer. So I pushed a curtain aside and called my husband. My husband held my hands tightly, apologizing, and asked if I was okay. And why I didn't say anything about it. I patted his hands and reassured him. I was upset because of my in-laws, but I felt it was okay, since I had a husband who only thought about me. Later I heard that day my condition was so terrible that I almost lost our baby. The doctor wore it repeatedly, that if I didn't want to lose our baby, I needed to strictly stay in bed and not move around at all for a while. That day's commotion was over. Like that, my husband declared to his father and that woman that we would not ever set our foot in their house. Therefore, he told them not to call me. However, it wasn't over. My husband's younger brother had heard of this news, went to his father's house and berated them. His father brought a woman as soon as his mother passed away. And now is he going to kill his sister-in-law as well? He said from now on they should continue to live quietly and not see us ever again. With that, his father flipped over while the woman plopped down on the floor and sobbed loudly, lamenting for herself. Fortunately, I became stabilized and time near toward the date to have my baby. But it was strange because there was no sign. I had prepared a bag to take with me to the hospital that was left by the door. A few more days passed, but still I had no sign of the baby. I became worried and called my mother. "Don't worry. You also came out 2 weeks later than the expected day. It's like that, don't be stressed and relaxed. Then the baby will come when the baby's ready." I said okay to my mother, but I was still worried. I was scared that perhaps due to that hard day of shopping with my new mother-in-law, causing severe fatigue, something could have gone wrong. I blame myself for not saying. I didn't want to go, honestly, and stay at home. Yet I followed their demands like a fool. If anything happened to my baby, I knew I would never forgive my new mother-in-law. On the other hand, if our baby was born without anything wrong, I said I would forgive them for what they did. Days of uneasiness continued. Then one day, I had an urge to go to the bathroom. Since the morning, I kept going in and out off the toilet for repeated urges, and I had to drag my heavy body. Then at noon, I started to feel pain like when I had my periods. Then the pain came every 5 minutes. The pain was driving me crazy. I called my mom to tell her about the pain. Then immediately she ordered me to give the phone to my husband. When my husband took the phone, my mother's voice pierced through the earpiece of the phone. "Take Zhang unto the hospital immediately," holding onto my large sacking stomach. I had it for the hospital. I gave birth 1 hour after we arrived at the hospital. It was a pretty daughter. She had a round face and a kind look. She looked exactly like my mother-in-law. My husband's eyes were also filled with tears when he first saw her baby daughter, as if she reminded him of his mother. If my mother-in-law was alive, I was sure she would have been the happiest. She would have carried the granddaughter who looked like her and danced around. After 3 weeks had passed, I was able to move a little. My new mother-in-law called. I thought she had found out that I had a baby and called. However, she said, "How could you not call us even once? Aren't you worried about your in-laws? Whether we are alive or dead? Do I, your mother-in-law, have to call you first? Just because I asked you to work a little, you're pouting. And were you planning to cut off all contacts forever? How could you be so mean? Well, what good is it to bring up the past? As I'm older, I have to forgive and pass it. Anyway, bygones are bygones. I today send some money. We have no money to even buy groceries." I was totally flabbergasted. My new mother-in-law did not change a bit even now. How could she be so blatant? However, it was strange. Previously, I was afraid to get scolded from the elders. So even if I was ill, I would do as I was ordered. However, after the baby was born, I was no longer afraid of anything else. I guess maybe it's because I enjoyed the birth pain to have a baby. So I felt like I could do anything. Thus I lose in my throat for once. Excuse me, who are you saying you're my mother-in-law? I'm sorry to say that my mother-in-law has passed away. Are you by chance a woman who's living with my father-in-law? Then I cannot call you my mother-in-law. I believe you both didn't even register legally as husband and wife, am I right? In my words, she seemed to be speechless, and she only made gurgling sounds. Are you crazy? How dare you say that to me? Are you trying to start with me? Yes, let's have a go at it. I have nothing to be afraid of now. I endured you out of respect for my husband. But now I no longer have to because, as you know, my husband and my brother-in-law don't have the faintest chance of accepting you as their mother. Therefore, you will never be my mother-in-law forever. In addition, I have no intention to even give you one penny to a person who almost was a color of my own baby. If you need money, you should contact your wonderful daughter. If you call me again asking for money, I won't stand for it. Do you understand? I spat out, relieving all my stress, and hung up on her after yelling at her. I felt so light to get rid of all the pent-up grudges against her that I felt like flying. I regret it for not saying this earlier, and keep taking our abuses. I told a story to my husband when he came back home from work, and he also said he felt relief that I handled it well. Oh, another news. Her daughter, who was getting the minko for a wedding, got a divorce within a year of their marriage. Her daughter, who never worked to earn a dime, was living a high-class life with her husband's salary, hiring even a chauffeur and going to host at bars. Then she got caught by her in-laws. To make matters worse, she even used her husband's credit card to buy a luxury brand watch to give us a present to a young host. It was discovered by her husband, causing the divorce. Because she was the guilty spouse, and due to a short marriage, she could not get any alimony. Instead, she had to reimburse for the luxury brand watch she bought with her husband's credit card. She always lived off her mother, so she didn't have any money. Her mother would have to reimburse it. That was the reason she called me, saying that she had no money to buy the groceries to help pay her daughter's stats within 2 years of marriage. We have many happy and sad happenings. We're planning to live our second life. Up until now, we were someone else's child. But now we are a father and a mother to a child. In life, there are obstacles and sad turn of events. But with the title of being parents, we want to live by trying our hardest. I wish all of you to be victorious. Thank you for listening to my story.